Ndewo, ndewo, ndibanye, ndewo, ekelekwa munu. Greetings to all of you. I am welcoming you to another episode of Chism Live. What an honor to be alive, to be walking among the living when many did not see this day. How happy I am that you are walking among the living, and so you are here with us. So we welcome you. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Okedibia Dr. Onyemobi Osimiri. I am one of the spiritual leaders of Chism Godianism International. And our objective is to remind the world, and most importantly, remind our people that we too knew Chineke before anyone else brought that to us. Chineke Olodumare, Tamona, Jinya Mikatonda Nyemi Kosi, Moari, Vuzilele. All the names that some of the names that we Africans have for the Creator. Today you hear us refer to Chineke because the Igbos refer to the Creator as Chineke or Chukwu. But we are here to continue the conversation that we started last week. Our Igbo Nigerians Jews. This is the part 2. Our Igbo Nigerians Jews. Why is this important? Why are we having this conversation? I read some of the mail that I got on my Facebook page, where some comments were that we are not telling them who they are. If we know who the Igbos are, we should tell them and not just make comments about it. And what I said to the young man who wrote me, I said, well, you certainly have the right to do your own research. That is what you must do with your mind. Challenge me if you will, yes, but challenge me based on research you've done to prove me wrong. I have no problem with being proved wrong. We do it all the time. I'm a college professor. That's what I do. My students challenge me because I always let them know I'm not always right. And if you find that I'm not right, you do the research and you find out yourself. And then I had another individual who says, why are we even talking about this? If humanity and civilization began in Africa, then it doesn't make sense that we should even consider ourselves coming from outside of Africa. And we should not want to be anything other than what Chineke created us to be. We should be proud people. But it is important that we talk about this. It is important we talk about it because you see, what we say to our children is what they will carry on when we're no longer here. We're not just here to inhale and exhale. We're here to teach. So it's important that we have this conversation because there's a conversation that's impacting a lot of our young people at home. The good news, of course, is some of them are becoming resistant. Not because they're resistant about Jews. No, the Jewish people have the right to exist as their history. You can't take people's history from them. But you can't take our history from us either. Because we do a disservice to our people and we do a disservice to our children. It's an exciting topic, and it is my pleasure to welcome my co-host, as always, Dibia Otraja. You the audio, you the day,
no, y'all guys here to everybody. Cow.
Yeah, guys here. And of course, we have our very dear, young, and I stress young, NwaMazi Onyemobi Aniwo. You know, we as elders, when we see our young picking up the baton and running, we must make sure that we hand them that baton. We don't drop it. When we ignore them, when they're wanting to ask us questions and we're running from them, they never pick up that baton and it drops. This is a young man who's an engineer and who has achieved academically, but to me, most importantly, he's achieved culturally. NwaMazi, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Thank you for having for joining us. So I have a question that I want to start with, and that question is for Dibia Otraja, Yudi. Yudi, because of the concern and the enthusiasm on both sides of the aisle, where did the Igbos come from?
That's the big one. That's the big fish. That's the elephant in the room. I'm going to address this question in a variety of ways, and hopefully at the end, it's going to make sense to a lot of people. And I'm going to start with talking about human migration patterns, right? And we know that Homo sapiens appeared about 200,000 years ago around Lake Chad of Africa, East Africa, and migrated from East Africa all the way down to Namibia, and then, of course, Nigeria, Gabon, those areas. And then, about 60,000 years ago, the first humans left Africa and migrated all the way to Australia. So you have the Aborigines of Australia. That was about 50,000 years ago, right? Then after that, another tribe of Africans migrated to India about 35,000 years ago and populated the Middle East, and so on and so forth. So I'm just going to stop here for now, and then I could pick it up later as we continue this discussion. So based on the human migration patterns, you could see that there's no way that we are Jews, right? Being Jews and then being Hebrew, those are two different things, but that's another show altogether. Then the next thing I'm going to do is, in addressing this question, is to talk about history and the different kinds of history and what they really mean and how they are applied, when and why. First is archaeology, dug up history. When you dig things up, artifacts and all that, you examine, you study them, then you get to write about them. Now, given that, we know that we don't have any artifacts that are authentic in Igbo land that came from Israel. Again, we have to be careful about Israel, because before the Zionist movement of 1946, the Jews had no homeland. They were all over Europe, right? And the people that actually protected the Jews in the Middle Ages were the Muslims. So they had no homeland. Israel is Johnny come lately, after 1946. In the last show, I had mentioned that Uganda was the first chosen place to settle the Jews after World War II, but they couldn't marry the history of the Jews as far as the biblical history is concerned with Uganda. So they chose Palestine, which was closer to their history or mythology, right? So you have archaeology, then you have written history, where things are written about from generation to generation, and history is not supposed to change. History is static. You don't change facts. History is supposed to deal with facts, but you don't change those. So you have written history. Then you have oral history. Now sometimes could be false. You could lose translations as you go along, depending on the situation at a particular space in time. Things can change, but that's the third level of history. Then another one that people don't talk about is mythology. And mythology has to deal with religion. You understand? So when you talk about the origins of a people, these are the different areas that you have to consider before you now make or have an informed conclusion as to where people came from. As far as the Igbos are concerned, we've been in Igbo land for at least 5,000 years. And the reason why I say that is because as far as migration patterns are concerned, you have to consider the Nok culture. Then you have to consider, for the people of Onisha, for example, you have to consider Bini, their migration from Bini to the particular place across the Niger River that they are. Then for me, as an Umboro man, and for NwaMazi Desta, who's from Aruchuku, you now have to consider our own history that goes back almost 1,000 years, from Ibibio. You understand? To Amampoti Ibibio, to Aruchuku, And at that time, about 900 years ago, the Eze of the people of Amampoto Ibibio was a character called Okonkwo. He was the one that was the ruler of Amampoto Ibibio. Then through migration patterns, went to Aluchuku, then to Ohofia, then down to Abreba, then Umboro, then you go to Eta, you go to Afikpo, Item, and all those areas. Right? So when you talk about the history of the Igbo people, number one, there is no archaeological fact that ties us to the Middle East. None whatsoever. And not only that, there is no pigmentation, skin pigmentation that ties us to the Middle East. None whatsoever. Now, there's some Middle Eastern pigmentation in West Africa, but that is the Fulanese.
Yes, exactly. Exactly.
And Fulanese are not Igbo people.
Yeah. No.
You understand? So it is a complex question in terms of where did we come from, because people migrate for various reasons. One is maybe because of conflict, famine, whatever reason why you leave an area to another area where you found a little bit more conducive for you to settle. And then over the years, you develop a culture, you develop the language, people come from all over the place and they make up this particular community and then they thrive. So the Igbo community is just not some geography where people came from the soil and just boom, became Igbos. It is based on migration patterns from different areas, from the Western Niger, from the Eastern Niger, through the Nok culture to settling in a particular place over a period of time, develop the language, culture, and so on and so forth. That is my take on how the Igbos came together, because you have to really break this down. One more final point I want to make. Mythology is very important. The enemy of religion is science. Archaeology can disprove a lot of mythology, right? You could make up all kinds of stories, but written or dug up history can disprove your mythological, genesis, so to speak. As far as human genesis is concerned, every religion has its own, or every culture has its own idea of who the first man or the first woman were. In Igbo culture, in my own culture of Unkporo, Maaluchukwu, and all those places, it is Ifenta and Ada, right? There's no, let there be light, and there was light, and in 7 days he's rested. Everybody got their own Adam and Eve, depending on how strong that particular culture is and their influence.
Okay, can I add to that? What is so, thank you, Yudi. That's just absolutely magnificent. I want to add that people don't realize that they are people who speak Igbo in Equatorial Guinea.
Yes.
In the Cameroon.
Absolutely.
So we are dispersed everywhere. I'm reminded of the story that my father used to tell. Okay, when he went to, it was a trader. A trader went to Cameroon. And then it seemed like every word was the opposite of Igbo, but it is the same word, but it's just the opposite. You know, and his reactions. It's a long story. But I want to. You want to come back to. No, just a minute, because I'm getting to you. I'm getting to you right now.
Well, I want to add on to what Dibia Ochoaja said.
Okay.
Very briefly.
Just hear me. Just hear me. I'm going to ask you a question, and you can tie everything to it, because I'm going to give you all the time to add the extra question. And the question I want to ask is, why are we so focused on finding our roots this moment, given all the other pressing issues that Nigeria has? Now you can respond to Yudi and take it away.
Yeah, sure. Thank you. So one of the things that I want to say first, he went and hit the nail on the head. And I want to add that we have professional historians. We have professional linguists. We have professional geneticists. These people who study their fields, I mean, these are not amateurs. These are people that are professionals. They all agree on one thing, that Igbos have multiple origins. It's not a single origin.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
From different parts of Africa. You go and take a look. The linguists will say that the Igbo language split off from other southern Nigerian languages about 5,000 years ago. The geneticists will say that we're virtually indistinguishable from our neighbors. And the historians will also say that it's clear that people on the borders came, they have ties to outside kingdoms, Igala, Benin, Ibibio. The ones in our heartland, they, came from other parts of Igbo. And in some, they've been there so long, they don't even have an origin. That's why I say that some of them say that we evolved here. We didn't come from anywhere because they've been there so long.
Yes.
So the key thing is there's multiple points of origin. And like I said, the historians, geneticists, and what is it called? Historians, geneticists, and linguists, professional ones, agreed to this. Now, with that being said, to answer the question as to why we are more prone to this than other groups, this is my opinion. So a lot of other groups, you look at the Edos, you look at the Yorubas. The Yorubas had two main kingdoms. They had the Oyo and they had Ife kingdom. The Beni folks all coalesced around the the Oba of Benin and so forth. So what tends to happen when you have more centralization, they have a central mythology. So for instance, according to the Yoruba, the Ile Ife, their founder, Oduduwa, came down from the sky on a golden chain. Right? And they have a relationship with Obatala, with Ogun. Ogun is the first Oba. Shango was, I think, the seventh or so. And so they have all the different mythologies, right? That ties them together. Any person who has sense knows that a man did not come from the sky on a golden chain. And clearly, everyone is not going to be from that same person. This person is when you say a founding father. In any country, the founding father is that doesn't mean that you're the literal father of the everyone in the kingdom, in the nation. That's the founder of your kingdom, your city-state, whatever you want to call it. So they have that. They have a more central mythology. Same with some of the Hausa kingdoms. So there's not as much fussing and fighting. It's a story that they agree on. The thing about Igbos is Igbos never lived under one central ruler. We never had an Igbo kingdom. And by that, I mean a centralized Igbo kingdom. We had decentralized Igbo kingdoms. So because of that, there wasn't one mythology, one folklore that we all coalesced around. If you ask different Igbo people who the first person was, they're going to tell you different things because they have different points of view, and that's fine. And as a result of that, it's left us more vulnerable to some of this foolishness. You don't see the Yorubas as much, or the Edos or other groups dealing with this as much. They do have some of these fringe, crazy, deranged people that say, oh, the Yoruba say that Oduduwa is from, the Yoruba Muslims will say Oduduwa is from Mecca. But it's only the Muslims that say that, and no one takes that, such claims seriously. They're not arguing and fussing and fighting about it. So as a result of our decentralized nature and decentralized history, we have, in fact, we were more vulnerable to this than other groups.
That is powerful. Thank you for sharing that. And you know what, UD, there is this push by those who claim that we are Jewish, and their claim to our Jewish nature, so to speak, because we are very hardworking people. The Jews are hardworking. Wherever we go to any country, we tend to take over, if you will. Okay, so if that is the case, if we have all of these Jewish traits, and in Israel they're doing very well, they go all over the world, they're doing very well, why is Igbo land in the condition it is today?
Thank you. And by the way, let me just say this. I'm going to hop on what Mazi Desta said. I'm going to agree with him on a couple of points. Then I'll address what you're saying. First of all, when you and I were coming up, Ogele, we used to hear Daddy say, everybody dancing to their own tune. That is the way of the Igbo man. Igbo Meaning is exactly that. Little bitty autonomous communities that rule themselves, and there was no centralized Igbo nation, right? That shared the common mythology of our Genesis. It was just individuals. Even today, the way we interact in Igbo land and outside of it as Igbo people is individual, every man for himself. And then in the end, you end up with too many kings and no subjects, or too many subjects and no king, depending on how you put it. Now, second part of your question that has to deal with what was that again? I just kind of lost myself.
I guess what I was saying is we say that part of why we are connected to the Jews is that we share the same characteristic. Yeah. Okay, yeah. So why are the Jewish nations doing very well, but the Igbo land is hurting, is not doing well?
Yeah,
if that's the case. So what? Yeah.
Yeah, just because I bleed red as a European doesn't make me European. Okay? Just because the Jews get successful and then the Igbo people are successful doesn't make me a Jew. And here's the difference between the Jews. The Jews are successful in Israel and outside of it. And they have a common spiritual philosophy that binds them together. Right? Igbo people are successful outside of Igbo land. But within Igbo land, they can't get it together. And by the way, these people that talk about Biafra, I'm all for Biafra. Don't get me wrong. I understand the history of Biafra. I understand the geography. I was a kid during the Nigerian Biafran War. I saw it all. I understand it. Let me tell you something else about this Biafra thing. Biafra should be about trying to fix your locality, fix Igbo land, best schools, education, businesses, those things that were successful building outside of Igbo land, we should be able to build it in Igbo land. And if we're not able to do it, I don't want to hear about Biafra as a sovereign nation. If you cannot manage the 5 states of Biafra right now with allocations from the federal government, what makes you think you're going to be able to manage yourself if you become independent from Nigeria? Where are you going to get the economic sustenance to be able to propel yourself to prominence when right now you can't even manage yourself in Biafra? I'm away from state. Oh, Abia State, what? Igbo State, give me a break. Anambra State, oh Lord have mercy. Enugu State, which one of Igbo land can you look at right now and say, man, this is where I want to be? Build it and they will come. Make yourself an example so that the rest of Nigeria can look at you and want to come to you to learn how you were able to build yourself up, manage your resources, and build the Igbo nation. See? You got to dress up and look good at home before you step outside. So instead of sitting around here talking about Buhari and talking about how you're being marginalized in Nigeria, when you in Igbo land are marginalizing yourself, maybe you need to get
your people together. And your people.
And your people. Create a good educational system, create a centralized mindset that, number one, from me to God, there's no difference. Because you cannot build a nation without, first of all, making sure that your culture and your history is taught in school and is sound and everybody understands it, understands what it is that you're supposed to do as a responsible member of your community. Build up Igbo land. Same thing with Black folks all over the world. We keep complaining about what is done to us. Yes, we understand that history, but this is the 21st century. It's time to now look inward and say, okay, based on what has happened to us throughout history, we know where we are, we know what we need to do, and we know which route we need to take to, number one, be able to organize ourselves as a nation, have one common goal, which is to build up the Black nation, manage it, and bequeath a lasting legacy to our children for their future. We're not doing that. We don't teach African history. We don't talk about the contributions that people of African ancestry made to civilized behavior. We promote nothing about ourselves. We tell somebody else's story, but we have never told our own story. Folklore and mythology is great. Myth is good. People tell stories that make them feel good about themselves. All people tell stories that make them feel good about themselves, but we tell somebody else's story. We want to embrace somebody else's history and claim that it's our own. This is cultural genocide.
Genocide. Yeah.
What are we going to tell our children?
Yes.
I'm a Jew. Is that it? Or maybe I should tell them I'm Chinese. How about that? Why stop with the Jews? I'm Japanese too. I'm a samurai. Let's go there. Yeah, we could do all that stuff. So for me, we are unable to manage ourselves like the Jews that we claim to be, because we don't have a centralized mindset that says that you have to look good at home before you could look good somewhere else. Build up your own place, set the example so that people can look up to you. When you're able to do that, then maybe on the mythological end of things, maybe I could see a similarity between you and the Jews. Because right now, I don't see any Igbo man acting like a Jew.
I have there's a young man, Chiji Stanley, and NwaMazi, I want you to take that question. He says, what brings Biafra in? I told you that's the young man that contacted me, and it's good. It's good that he's curious, and he did come back. And Chiji Stanley, I want to congratulate you for being for coming in, because it tells me that you're very curious and you want to know. He says, I told you people are of something. We are here to find out our roots. You are talking another thing. Laugh out loud.
He's not listening.
Well, I'm not sure.
I'll address that. So one of the things that has crept into the neo-Biafran movement has been trying to align ourselves with Israel. And in doing so, in my opinion, they shot themselves in the foot. There's one thing if you want to go and trying to find allies from abroad. It's another thing if you are actively deceiving people into stuff that's just not true. You know, no, we don't have any ties to Israel genetically or historically or whatever. Like, we just don't. That doesn't mean that we can't have allies, you know, from wherever.
Yes.
It's just unfortunate. And quite frankly, the amount of energy that's been wasted on this thing, we've had millions of hours literally wasted on this topic, that if we were to take 10% of that energy towards the development of our culture, we'd be in such a better place. In my opinion, what Igbos as well as other Africans need to do, we need to get into science and technology. One thing I appreciate about our traditional religions actually created technology. Like, you know, you have the god Ikenga. Ikenga dealt with technology. We had various blacksmith gods. In the Yoruba, they have Ogun. Ogun was the god of blacksmiths. These people actively created technology. That was a part of their tradition. Under our current mindset, we're waiting on sky genies. All Nigerians do is pray. They think that they can go and shout and scream, and Nigerians pray for for God to provide things that other people can provide without any type of supernatural, with no miracles. It's crazy. This is madness. This doesn't make any sense. You know, why are you praying for clean water and for good schools or for good government? How about you go and take time and energy and learn how to do that yourself and learn civics, so you know, hey, someone is saying this stuff, don't vote for this person. Go and vote for this person. You know, like it's madness. It's pure madness. And until we fix this, listen, one thing I tell people, you have Africans do nothing but build structures, right? They build houses of worship so they can go to make heaven. Meanwhile, other cultures, the Chinese, the Indians, the Europeans, they're building structures that can explore the heavens. They're actively, they're way ahead of us. It makes no sense. What I tell people, Africans, and let's start at home, Nigerians, Igbos, whatever you want to call us, stop building churches, start building libraries. How about that? I don't even think they should go and build more shrines. No. I say go and build more libraries. How about that? It sounds crazy. Just build some more libraries and build some more things where people can learn technology and actually improve their lives themselves.
Yeah, yeah. You know, I want to read something. I want to read something that a young man has written, Ukunna Charles. Is asking Mr. Cheese Stanley. And Cheese, I want you to know that we are engaging you because you've requested that we engage you. So that's what we're doing. What are you talking about? Are you sure you've been following this program? I think that if you had joined us earlier, you would have heard Dibia Chwaja tell us about the fact that we are from different parts of Africa, and we all came together to form this Igbo Union. All right, we're not here to tell you about your connection to Israel. If that's what you're looking for, I think you're in the wrong forum. We're not talking about that connection. Okay. Now here he is again. And that good. Please engage him. He wants to know if you fail to tell us our route. Don't condemn anyone for doing that because you're not sure. That is exactly what the problem is not listening.
You know, let me say this. I actually feel terrible for him because you're looking at people that have been under somebody else's boot for a long time. They've been under the gun and they're grabbing onto anything that can make him feel whole, right? That can make him feel like they belong somewhere. They are part of something that is genuine, you know, something that is blessed, so to speak. They're just holding on. And that is just, it's not just about the misinformation, but it's about the inability of those people in government or those people in power to be able to provide the kind of education and mindset that the young generation needs to build their own future. They don't teach this stuff in school. They just don't. Now, I think last week I talked about the fact that, let me tell you something about history. Let me not get ahead of myself here. You know, I'm just getting real deep into this right now. Let me tell you about history. History is not something that has a specific generational beginning where you say this is set in stone and it is so static and conservative that it doesn't change. Number one, it depends on who's telling the story. Number two, it depends on what the objective is. And number three, it depends on a given space in time. This conversation that we're having right now, or the events that are going on in the world today, 5,000 years from now, somebody might be in a forum just like this, discussing it as history, right? And some information that goes beyond what we're doing today may be lost. History is not just something you say, well, because I can't find it, then I give up on it. You could start making that history today for the next generation. We just need to do the things that has to do with nation formation first. You have to have a Pan-African mindset on all levels. Then you could build that nation, then you could manage that nation. So if we are of the consensus today that nation building, or should I say nation formation, is the route that we need to take to get us to where we need to be so that we could sit at the table and dine with kings from all over the world, and I suggest that what we need to do is now start paying attention to the information that is gleaned, not just from this show, but from any other outlet that has the same objectives as we do, which is to promote the African and purify the African mind. From the Chiefs to the Death Star, Onyemobis, to everybody that is out there with a Pan-African mindset that want to promote our history, our culture, our religion, and science, and start there.
That's right.
We need to impart that to the kids because they can't be sitting around holding us to something that is totally irrelevant and will never make a difference in their condition today. It wouldn't. Being Jewish would change nothing for the Igbo man. And if you're building Biafra and you want to build it as a nation, then you can't build it based on somebody else's history and culture. It has to be based on your own.
Thank you.
Period.
That's it. NwaMazi, you know, I feel, first of all, I feel very privileged. Believe it or not, I feel very privileged to listen to you guys speak, because although it is something that I already know, it is just wonderful to hear our people articulate it for the benefit of other people. There are some individuals that are not going to hear what we're saying, and it's all right. You know, you cannot please everyone, and you shouldn't even try. My thing is that there's so many forums out there that is promoting the notion that African Igbos are Jewish, but this is not the forum. So if you come here and you don't get that, you're not fed that nonsense, excuse the expression, then you know, you certainly have the right to go elsewhere. NwaMazi, I think that we've lost your connection. I'm not sure. There you go. I'm sorry. The question I wanted to ask you is, when you look at the other, the Igbos are not the only ethnic group there. Okay, Christianity is not just in Igbo land. Okay, the whole notion of the Bible and Abraham, I mean, the Jewish question obviously comes from the Bible, Abraham, and all of that. That you've got Yoruba who are Christians. You even have the Hausas who are Christian, but they are not out there pushing to be associated with the mythology of the Bible. Why is it that the Igbos are so wrapped up? You know, I'm Igbo and I want to be proud of my people. This bothers me a lot. Why is it that we are obsessed with the other? We don't appreciate ourselves. Why is it, NwaMazi, that we have over concerned with this?
One of the things I mentioned last time is cultural confidence. It's not about, you know, people talk about pride. Pride doesn't mean anything. Confidence. Do you have confidence in your own people's institutions? Mm-hmm. Do you have confidence in the things that were passed down to you? The reality is that our folks just quite frankly don't. And we have all bark and not much bite. And, you know, for some people, they think that if they associate themselves with Israel, like I said, it will get some type of benefit. Some of them want to actively leave Nigeria and escape there. And they think that, oh, we can have a right, the so-called right to return. In fact, when I wrote the articles about the Jews of Israel, the Jews of Nigeria, a re-emerging scam, I said that someone had tried that. You know, he was in Israel and he was trying to go and get, you know, citizenship under the right of return, and they laughed at him and they rejected it. But plenty of other people want to do the same thing. I think, look, we have a void that we're trying to fill. And even, in my opinion, history itself won't do a good job. There's nothing wrong with recreating yourself. If you take a look, let's go and look right now. Let's study the 20th century, you know, and take a look at their nations that emerged in the 20th century. Japan is pretty late to the ball game in terms of civilization. China was way older than Japan, and yet Japan overtook them easily. Japan overtook them quite easily. Germany, the Germans did not have any ancient civilization. They were well aware of it, and yet they look what they were able to do to the British and the French and the rest. If not for Americans, Americans and Russians, most of Western Europe will be speaking German right now. And that's a young nation. And it's because they put their energy into science and technology. Look at South Korea. You know, that movie Black Panther, I enjoyed watching it. But what was really interesting about the movie was people were so fascinated with Wakanda, which is not a real nation. And part of the movie took place in South Korea, which is a real nation, and whose people dedicated themselves to science and technology, and in doing so, built one of the most technologically advanced nations on the planet. So I was like, well, what's stopping us? Why don't we go and recreate ourselves as tech-savvy people, as modern people, push ourselves into the new horizons? Why are we so stuck on the ancient things?
And 5,000 years from now, the history of that particular tribe or people is going to come from what you just stated. History is about new beginnings, man. It depends on who's telling the story, when and why. And by the way, as far as this Abrahamic stuff is concerned, based on the patristic literature, you know, the first 5 books of the Old Testament that was expanded upon by St. Augustine and St. Origen. Now, You all ready for this? My
Sure.
Biafran people, Abraham, for the most part, is a myth. He was never mentioned in any historical text. Now, the city of Ur and all that near, in the Middle East and all that did exist. And sometimes you could tie mythology to real places and stuff like that. But as far as the name of a person called Abraham, historically speaking, as opposed to his reference in biblical text, did not exist.
Mm. This young man,
Don't shock a lot of people.
I really wanted to say, read what this young man said, because this is important, and I do applaud all the audience, members of our viewing audience who are responding to him. But remember, I invited him, so I am addressing his questions because I invited him based on his curiosity. Any one of you can talk about what he has written here. NwaMazi, please go right ahead. Can you read it?
Which comment?
Chiji Stanley, it's on the screen.
Change, make this a debate. Everyone will tell his story, not one group. My mother cannot tell me I have no father, even as a result of science. He will let me that and have her peace. I'm not quite sure what he's getting at. I mean, if people want to say that they're from Israel, then go ahead. Just leave the rest of us out of it.
Thank you.
That's just it. If you want to say that you and your family found some way thousands of years ago to get from the Levant to Nigeria and no one else noticed, sure. But leave the rest of us out of it. Don't try and rewrite history. I've seen some people writing that, Aroshuku was founded by Arodi, who was one of the sons of some biblical character. I'm like, no, that's not in our history. You're making this up. This is not making stuff up.
And that's what it is. And why give credence? Listen, some people sometimes sit around and say, well, you got to hear the other side. What other side?
Yes.
I'm not interested in hearing any other side that is just going to bastardize my history and who I am as an Igbo person. We're here to let you know that Igbos have never, were never, and will never be Jews. There's nothing wrong with being a Jew. There's nothing wrong with Abraham being the father of Israel. But Abraham is not the father of humanity, because the human race, Homo sapiens, didn't start from the Middle East. It started in Africa. So if Homo sapiens migration started 200,000 years ago, there is no way that Abraham is the father of humanity. Just like there is no way, since the Jewish history 7,000 years ago, there's no way Adam and Eve are the father and mother of the first humans. It is just myth. Nothing wrong with mythology. People tell stories that make them feel good about themselves. All people do it. We should do the same thing. Mythology is not science. It is just a way for people to explain their humble beginnings that they cannot explain scientifically. Scientifically speaking, we have archaeological finds. We have archaeological digs all over the world. We find artifacts. We find bones. We find all those things. We use carbon dating to date them. But beyond that, who is to say that God was not responsible if you believe in myth and you have faith and you understand or believe that God was the first principle of life before anything else? God created the universe. Scientifically speaking, we talk about the Big Bang. Well, who's to say, like my father and the Archbishop of Canterbury had a conversation way back in the 60s. My father says, how do you know that Chineke was not responsible for the Big Bang? We don't know that. It's all myth and faith, things that science cannot prove, things that we don't understand, we ascribe or attribute to the powers of the divine. And that's how we roll in life in all cultures. But this forum is not to conflict, or should I say, sit here and start talking about or having a conversation with somebody who thinks that Igbos came from Israel. They have their own forum. They could discuss that. They will never invite me or you or Desta to their forum because they know that we're not down with that. Let those people that want to talk about that deal with it. We're here to let people, Igbo people, know that we've never been Jews, and it is important for our psychological or mental health that we really throw that notion out the back door, because it is not healthy for us as Igbo people, and we cannot build a nation based on somebody else's history.
You just absolutely can't. You just absolutely can't. And one of the reasons why, quite frankly, it is imperative that we shut down. I think Onyo had written. Let me read his comment here. If people insist that Igbos are Jews, you need to set them straight. We must. We must. We've been passive too long as a people. I remember as a child in Igbo land, when my father was fighting, to the best of his ability, to let our people know, at some point, unless you correct all of this, you will regret it.
Yes.
You will regret it. I remember that back then, when he sang it like a song. We have got to turn around, Sankofa, go back, stop doing this, stop buying all of this, because ultimately you regret it. And I think we're regretting it now. The regret is not so much that we have not been able to get leadership that will see that the Igbos are worthy of good roads, that Igbos are worthy of good schools, that the Igbos are worthy of electricity, that our children are worthy of being invited back to Igbo land to practice what they have learned wherever, just like the Chinese do. They welcome you back. The Igbo people have continuously, for many years now, if you go back to Igbo land 30 years ago, we are worse off now than we were 30 years ago.
Yep. True.
When I go home, I am shocked. There was a road that we had to pass to go to Owerri. I could not believe it. How can that be? Trucks were flipping over on roads. What is it about us that, okay, if the government doesn't do it, huh? What is it about our culture that tells us, okay, if the government doesn't do it, come on, our men, come on, go dig that doggone road. Then demand from your leadership. But you cannot sit there is an Igbo proverb that says, you don't climb the tree and let go. You let go because you believe that God is there. Do you understand? At some point, we've got to let go of all this nonsense about dreaming, just like NwaMazi said, dreaming of heaven from manna from heaven, for some savior. And you have people that you're trying to let know, like this young man, we're trying to educate him and he's fighting it.
Yeah, he's fighting it. Let me use that.
Go ahead.
The American political situation right now. Republicans lost the election. And you have 73 or 74 million people talking about the election was stolen. No matter how many times you had to recount, no matter how many times the vote or election was, ratified, they still believe that. Same thing with our people. No matter how bad it gets in Igbo land, they still believe that there's going to be some angel from somewhere from the heavens that is going to come and change their condition on earth. In Igboro, we say, if the community is successful, you in turn become successful right along with that community. Foreign religion, Christianism, Islam, Judaism, all these foreign religions operating in Africa, particularly in Igbo land, have done one thing and one thing only: damaged our sense of communal responsibility. In Christianism, it is your personal salvation that is important, not the salvation of somebody else. Accept Jesus Christ as Lord and Savior, whether you're a murderer, whether you're a rapist, whether you have done all manner of evil in your life. If you get a chance to accept Jesus Christ as your Lord and Savior before you die, all your sins will be expunged. That's how we're operating right now in Africa.
That's it.
As opposed to saying in African spiritual culture, An eye for an eye, a tooth for a tooth. Whatever you put out there, you're getting it back. There are two ways of upholding the law. One is spiritual. Thou shalt not kill. If that fails, civic law will get you. You get the death penalty. All human systems are products of religion. The fact that we have turned our back on our primordial spiritual tenets and philosophies is one of the reasons why we're wandering around right now in the Sahara Desert waiting for rain to come. You cannot turn your back on your history. You have to know where you've been, know where you're going. Nobody's coming from the heavens to save you. Whatever it is, you have to be the God that you talk about. Whatever it is that you need God to do for you, you have to put in the effort so that maybe your dreams can come true. Like you mentioned earlier, you cannot climb a tree and then let go and say, because there's God, I'm not going to fall and break my neck. Because what you're doing is tempting God. And that's what we're doing in Igbo land. We're jumping out of an airplane without any parachute and expecting that we're not going to be smashed to bits and pieces once we hit the ground. We have to take control of our own destiny as poor people, as Africans, just like NwaMazi said. Stop building a castle in the sky. Whatever you seek is possible if you put in the effort to make it happen. But if you don't, nothing is happening.
I want to add, something really, really interesting that I've observed. So a lot of our folks who are obsessed with this whole Jewish thing, they don't actually, there's a cognitive dissonance, right? Between them trying to be aligned with the Jews, the ancient Hebrews, whatever, and them actually witnessing what the actual Israelis have done to secure and keep their land. The Israelis recognized that there was no God in the sky that was going to keep them from being slaughtered. They learned a very hard lesson in the 20th century. That's why they say never again. They built a nation from scratch. They built an intelligence agency. They built all this from scratch. Israel is a secular state. If you actually take a look at it, it is not a religious state. It is a secular state. They said, look, we're not going to have security unless we provide it ourselves. They didn't go and sit around praying for an invisible sky daddy to go and give them security. They decided to go and fight for it. They came, they saw, they conquered. There lots of people disagree with it, but guess what? You can disagree all they want. They actually did it. Our people can't defend against Fulani herdsmen, and then they want their own nation. This is madness. Listen, if you want something, you do something about it. If you were expecting your invisible sky genie, I don't care. This is the sky genie. The sky genie that you're shouting and screaming about. Do something about it. This is madness. What are you going to do? You're shouting and screaming. If prayer worked the way Nigerians think that it does, Nigeria will be the best nation in the world. The idea of a prayer warrior is a sign of mental illness. No, that's not how it works.
It is. Absolutely. NwaMazi, you're absolutely right. As a matter of fact, let me just kind of talk about what you were just talking about. I'm not even deviating from it at all. I was having a conversation with my wife, right? And my son. I said, one of the greatest tragedies in Africa is that we don't even have a standard army that can protect our borders if there's another attempt to colonize Africa because of resources. There's no country in Africa that can defend themselves against any outside threat. Like you mentioned, we can't even do it against the Fulani herdsmen with their bows and arrows and their little, machine guns or whatever. We don't even have enough leadership in Igbo land that can organize a militia to protect the people. Even the people that are talking about Biafra this and Biafra that, they can't even protect the Biafra against Fulani herdsmen. And you want to talk about you want to proceed from Nigeria? Are you crazy? And you can write that in your books and talk about it in your books. I really don't give, what? The truth of
You did. This young man, Kafani Kwame Anu, says all nations with man-made gods has an army. Where is your army?
None. And every nation has a man-made God. The story of, listen, you and I had a conversation yesterday, Okedibia, and I said to you, if you don't expect any blessings from God, would you pray?
No.
Now, here's the second question for you, because I'm very philosophical about these things when I talk about it. Without people, does God exist? Think about what I just asked. Without human beings, does God exist? Because the concept and the idea of God came from your mind. And your understanding of your environment and trying to protect it and giving kudos to whatever God or supreme being that you feel is responsible for the life-sustaining forces that keep you alive. If you don't expect any blessing from the supreme being, and humans are not here to sing Chineke's praises or God's praises, does God exist? How would you know?
Gentlemen, thank you. Listen, I want you to give us your closing statements before we end the show. We've got about 3 more minutes left. So I'm going to start with you, our guest, NwaMazi. Please give us your closing statement, because this is the final segment of this particular topic.
Right. So what I want to say in closing, there's a saying, don't trip over what's behind you, right? So a lot of us are spending time trying to connect us to a great past that's somewhere else, right? And in doing so, we're missing out on what's right in front of us. Listen, the best can be yet to come. Worry more about your future and where you came from. Focus on the now. People will be debating history until forever, but the future is in your hands. And if you desire a result, what are you going to do about it? Because as I keep on saying, the magical sky genie is not going to do it for you. You and other people who agree with you have to act, and you have to actually believe in yourselves. Believe in yourself and believe in others. And stop wasting time. Think very clearly. A lot of people disagree with some of the things I'm saying, but think of it very clearly and be honest with yourself. What have you accomplished with the endless hours you spent pouring into the Hebrew whatever? What have you actually accomplished? And if you haven't accomplished anything, then you need to go and stop that and figure out what you can do that can make you accomplish your goals. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you very much. Dibia Ochoaja.
I am so happy that we had NwaMazi on this forum, to kind of walk through this journey with us and explain, the Biafran question, as far as Igbo history is concerned. What I really just want to say is, you cannot build a castle on sand. Now, this idea of Igbos or Black folks, even the African-American community, there are some African-American communities that think that they are Hebrews. And we seem to tie ourselves to the suffrage and the successes of the Israeli state, how they supposedly journeyed through Egypt, were interred in Egypt, and were able to come out of it, made it through World War II, got their own nation through Zionism, and now are very successful and will defend it no matter what. Right? We tie ourselves to a people who escaped from something as opposed to, look, there's something called cross-cultural pollination. You borrow from other people things that are relevant, and you add it to yours, right? I don't mind, and I will encourage us all in the Black community globally to look at what Israel did and do it for ourselves. So that we could rise and become as independent and as self-sufficient as they are. And let me tell you something. Mythologically speaking, Israel rules the world. They are respected. They used to be the enemy of the European, and their allies, believe it or not, were the Muslims. Islam is an offshoot of Judaism. It's an Abrahamic religion, just like Christianism is. In the end, Israel controls the world. Why do I say that? The mythology of the European Christian is based on Judaism. And now, as Africans, Christianism is all over the world. So all African Christians are down with the mythology of Judaism, Abraham, Adam and Eve, and all that. We are down with something that is not innately ours. We have to look inward to find solutions to our problem. I encourage us all, yes, our history is not tied in with the Jews or with Israel. And I will encourage you, look at what they did and how they got to where they are today, and mimic that. Now, if you want to mimic anything, mimic their successes.
Thank you. I would like to thank all of you for joining us, and I also would like to take the time and thank some of the individuals who were on the show. Kafani, Kwame Anu, thank you. Onyoha, thank you so very much. Nosferatu, Charles Moke, let's see, gosh, there's quite a number of them here. And certainly Chidi Stanley for joining us. I'm glad you took up the offer and joined us. And there's some people, there were so many people on this call, and I'm so grateful. Matthew Lewis, thank you for joining us. And Ukuna Charles, did I mention him? He joined us as well. And there's, let's see, Real Adam, and the number goes on and on. Thank you all for joining us. And in closing, I just want to say this, to remind my people of Igbo land, that there is really nothing that we want that we cannot have. There is nothing the Jews have that is too good for us that we don't have right there in Igbo land. That there's nothing that they have that is too good for us. That there's nothing they have that was designed for us outside of Igbo land. Everything we want is in Igbo land. We've got land. We've got all the resources, mineral resources, manpower. We've got anything that we need if we would just use it. We are, our crown has already been bought and paid for. All we have to do is bend down, pick it up and put it on our heads and stop looking elsewhere for definition. We must speak for ourselves, define ourselves, and not allow other people to do it for us. As long as we are out here running about trying to identify with other people who don't even recognize us. You cannot go to Israel and tell them, I'm from Igbo land, I'm your brother or sister. They won't even, some of them won't even let, some communities in Israel will not let your children to go to school with their own children. It is important for us to understand we are not here. Our role here is not to tell you that we are better than the Israeli, than the Jews. We're not saying that at all. All we are saying is that we're good enough. And our children have the right to feel that they're good enough. When they say I'm evil, they should be saying Shalom. They should be saying Dewo. Yakazir. These days, we speak another tongue and abandon our own. And somehow we feel that makes us superior. There is a sense of inferiority complex when you feel that you must identify yourself by someone else's definition of what's important. You've got to define yourself. You see, the universe that all of us preach, the only time that the universe will pick us up is when we speak for ourselves, when we go beyond the definition that someone else has given us. No, I'm not Jewish. And that doesn't mean there's anything with the Jews. But I'm Igbo. I'm one Igbo. I'm Apoyankoro. Let the Igbos have pride in who they are. There are many African Americans who are going here doing their DNA test, trying to find where they are, and then they land in Igbo land, and they get there and you tell them they're Jewish, and you have the audacity to be angry with us for saying that we're Igbo. We are Igbo because we're proud people, and we must stay proud. We must sing our own song and write and dance to our own music, because if we don't do it, nobody else would do it. It is up to us, and we are Chism. We here on Chism Live, we are going to continue to sing it, dance it, talk it, Like it or not, we are here to stay. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. And if you're Igbo, be proud, honey. God made you Igbo for a reason. Thank you all for joining us. I love you all. Now,
You know?
thank you guys. Thank you so much.